All right, welcome to stage 3 of our 7-stage system for generating high-quality business leads with LinkedIn. In this video, we're going to be going over everything you need to know to finding your ideal clients using LinkedIn's powerful Sales Navigator. So this is for you if you don't know how to find your target market, or when you reach out to people, you don't seem to be able to get any kind of engagement on LinkedIn. Sales Navigator and just its LinkedIn search in general is really what makes LinkedIn the powerhouse B2B platform that it is today. And by the end of this video, you're gonna have a really solid idea on how to find your target market, even for really obscure niche industries and niche titles and roles. And you're gonna be able to prioritize your target market by those who are likely or more likely to engage and more likely to buy. More specifically, we're gonna cover a quick introduction to Sales Navigator and what makes it so useful, how to use the filters effectively, different ways to build, save, and organize lists, prioritizing lists for the best engagement, cleaning data, and heaps more. So a super quick intro for anyone who hasn't seen any of the other videos in this series yet. My name is Ryan Caswell. I'm the founder here at b2bleads.com, and we're a specialist lead gen agency for business service providers. We've ran thousands of campaigns across LinkedIn and helped hundreds of clients all over the world grow the business with more predictable lead gen systems and processes. We know firsthand the power of Sales Navigator and getting your targeting right, and I'm super excited to share that with you today. All right, so let's start with what is Sales Navigator? So for those of you who haven't seen it before, let's jump on LinkedIn. Something you should all be somewhat familiar with. I'll zoom in a bit so it's a bit easier to see. So if I go to my page here. All right, so Sales Navigator is one of the premium subscriptions for LinkedIn. It costs about $100 a month. It kind of actually does vary a little bit and depends on whether you're buying annually, whether you're buying monthly, and even where you actually live in the world. But roughly it's about $100 a month. And what it does is it gives you access to a lot more functionality around filtering and finding your target market, saving those lists, prioritizing them by engagement and likelihood to buy. And it also lets you, even just on your normal LinkedIn account, reach out to more people and send more connection requests and connection messages as well. So there's a ton of advantages to using it. If you don't use Sales Navigator, you can just use the free search, let's say director on LinkedIn. But if you really want to take lead generation seriously, you're going to want to take things up a notch. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the free search. On my YouTube channel, there is more information on that if that's where you want to focus. But I'm here to help people generate a lot of leads, and you're going to want Sales Navigator in order to do that. So there's a few different options, and when it comes to Sales Navigator, all you really need is Core. So Advanced lets you, if you're working in a team, there's some functionality that's helpful for that. It also lets you do some targeting based on buyer intent. But from my experience, none of that's actually been particularly useful. In fact, our results when we did it across an audience that was supposedly having buyer intent, whether that's using AI to find it or not, turned out about half the results to just a normal campaign without targeting or using that at all. Go figure. Anyway, so definitely don't need to spend the extra money to get the fancier ones. Maybe if you have a team, there's some advantages around coordinating with different team members. But if you're just starting out, highly recommend just starting with Core, even individually across your licenses. If you have a team, you don't get any cost saving by getting a Teams account. Actually ends up costing you more than just having individual Core licenses itself. So once you get Sales Navigator, you should see this little icon up in the top right hand corner here. And if you click on it, you see it actually takes you to what seems like a bit of a different actual thing. So this is, I've got Sales Navigator Advanced, so it looks a little different on mine. But if you head to, I believe it's this one, maybe I'm going the wrong one. It should look a little bit something like this. And this is really where the money is. It's on this, go up to the search and just click anything, press enter, and it'll take you to a blank page like this. Now, this is where I guess the money is made. This is where all the different filters are, and really where you can start to find and locate your target market. So the first thing I want to touch on is, like, a lot of these are very obvious. Like you've got things like your current company that your person is working at, your target market's working at, headcount, function, like a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. Where LinkedIn is really powerful is the ability to use what's called Boolean searches in certain categories of filters here to get really specific on who you want to reach out to. So one of my favorite filters here to find your target market is your current job title. Generally what people call themselves is a really good indication of their seniority level within an organization. Now, a lot of people end up trying to find their target market and they end up just putting things in like director of, let's say director of sales as an example. So that'll bring up a lot of director of sales roles, but you might be looking for director of sales and marketing, director of marketing and sales, head of sales in this, or like there's a number of different things that could be in your target market, but you don't necessarily know every single one of them. But you know there's certain keywords and combinations of keywords that are going to determine whether that person is a fit or not in your target market. So if you look down here, I'll do a little bit of a description on what you need to do. So what you can actually do is, rather than saying sales director, you can use a Boolean search, open brackets, and you could say sales and double quote director, and that instead will actually look at all the different combinations of sales and director within someone's title rather than just sales director. And then what you can also do, and where this is really valuable, is you can start to build out all the different titles. So here, let me zoom in a bit on this for you guys. So LM title 2. See, this is really powerful now, because then we can start to put in, well, what level of decision maker do I want to go after and what keywords do I want to include in that? So sales and director, sales and head of, sales and chief, sales and executive, and then I might not want to do anything lower than executive. This or thing, what this does means that include this rule and then or this rule. So it says I want to look for someone who has sales and director in their title, or sales and head of, or sales and chief. So let me just quickly copy that. Make sure the last one doesn't have an or statement on it. There we go. So I wanted to jump straight into this because a lot of the other filters, like I said, are very self-explanatory. Current company, you can just list the companies here and select them, or you can even do the same thing with the rules there. You can write Microsoft or Google and look for people with either the term Microsoft or Google in their titles. So you need to write, anytime you use these rules, or and, or brackets, you got to put them in capital letters too. Otherwise, it'll actually try to search for that OR as a term in the actual search. You can do the exact same thing up here with keywords. One thing that's really powerful is you might be looking for sales directors with experience in, I don't know, what's a good one? Salesforce. Let's say you want someone with Salesforce experience. This means that it's looking for Salesforce listed as keywords somewhere within their title. And then you may want to also say, I want to make sure I don't include consultants. So this is a really powerful way to find people with certain keywords, and to exclude, you put NOT, not people with these certain keywords. And then you can replicate the exact same rules again, not consultant or not advisor. Pop that in, and then that'll look for people that have Salesforce experience or have listed Salesforce somewhere on their LinkedIn profile, and not a consultant or an advisor. So you can have a lot of fun with this, and you can get really detailed. You can even use ChatGPT to say like, hey, I'm trying to find my ideal target profile. Here are 10 examples of what they look like. What kind of rule would you write in the search query or around the titles that would include everyone and exclude these ones who are actually irrelevant? And GPT can do a pretty cool job as well, but sometimes it just gets unnecessarily complicated for something that you can just do with fairly simple search terms up here. What else is interesting? We're going to dive into some of the more cooler features on here as well, but I'll just quickly scan through some of the other ones in case there's anything interesting or worth going over. So company headcount's obviously an important one. Past company can be good if you're looking for people with past experience. Let's say you wanted someone at Google. Company type can be useful for looking at government, people working in government. Useful tip for people working in government is when you look for the company name, include words like states, city, council, things like that, because there's a lot of mess in those industries that brings in a lot of things that are kind of not actually government. And when something has, let's say New South Wales in the title, it's usually a good indication it's some government department as well, and cleans up a lot of the mess. Company headquarter location, can be useful. Function I don't tend to use because once again I feel the title is the best indication. Now if you go too crazy with all the different filters, you can have filters that have overlapping things, and if it doesn't fit both of them, it excludes a lot of potentially relevant people. So I tend to, rather than using function, I tend to focus more on the actual job title. Same thing with seniority level, I don't really use that one very much. Job title, hang a second, let me move that. Past job title, yeah, can be useful. I don't use it too much. Years in current company is a really good one, especially if you're looking for, because you can't target based on age on LinkedIn. So it's a really good one if you actually want to find people that are more experienced or more likely to be older people with more experience. So you can say 10 plus years experience in the current company or in their current position. Geography, pretty obvious. Industry is a really good one. It's not sort of all inclusive, and you do need to be a little bit conscious with it. And some industries are a bit broad, and so you need to do some interesting tricks to go a little deeper. Name, language, yeah. If you're looking for people who speak English, pop that in. Experience, yeah, that's quite a useful one again, similar to the years in the current company. And connection of, I'm going to be touching on that one a little bit later. So connection basically means whether they're first, second, or third degree connection. There's some other things here, but I don't worry too much about those. So where Sales Navigator can get, I guess, a little bit confusing is really the way you organize your lists and search on the platform. So I'll do my best to kind of map out how the platform actually operates and works, so you have an idea of which one you need to use based on your target market. So if we quickly look at my screen, you see that there's kind of accounts and leads up the top. Don't worry too much about this, messaging, admin, home, or any of that. Just look at accounts and leads, and if you click on Save Searches, you'll see, once again, accounts and leads under Save Searches. So the difference between these two are accounts and leads. I would say, think of accounts and leads up here as static. So first of all, an account is basically like a company profile. You have your actual personal profiles on LinkedIn, and then you've got your company profiles on LinkedIn. So leads refer to specific people that work at companies, obviously, or work at accounts, and accounts refer to the specific types of companies, businesses, not-for-profits, government agencies, whatever. They're not humans specifically, they're the actual account. So you've got accounts and leads up here at the top, and then you have accounts and leads under your saved searches. So think of this up here as your static lists, where you will be saving your accounts as like a one-by-one basis. So let's say you find the company Google, you might save it to your account list here. And same thing goes with leads. You might find a director of sales working at Google, and you might save them to your lead list here. Now the difference between accounts and leads here and accounts and leads under your saved searches is saved searches is more like a dynamic rule set to find your accounts and leads. And what I mean by that is, you see what we're building here is a series of rules. It's not actually, hey, I'm looking for this specific, I've saved this specific person to my lead list, or I've saved this specific company to my account. It's, hey, what accounts or what leads exist based on the rules that I've set. And then you can actually say, all right, these are the rules I want to set. These are the people that fall into these rules. You can now save that search and it'll end up here. So it's a bit weird, and this likely will change again by the time you see this. It changes quite often. You click on Save Search here, and it'll save this rule set for leads up here, and you can give it a different name. So you can call it, we'll call it Test Leads. And then you've got that list there. Pretty simple stuff. Now, however, you might want to actually build a list or build a rule set to find certain accounts or companies. You click up here now for accounts, and the filters are actually different. So a lot of times you lose the rules here because it's different filters. Some of them will carry through, like company headcount, that obviously carries through. So now you can set your rules here on who you want to specifically reach out to. Same thing with the keywords, and you can actually either save them to your list, which means it'll save them here individually, and same with the leads, or you can save this rule set, which means that it's dynamic. It means that if these companies no longer fit your rule set, they're not going to be in here anymore. And so because I click save here, you can see now that it's saved there under account, and I can call that test account. So hopefully this is giving you a bit of an idea on the way the lists and leads work on LinkedIn. So what might be helpful is if I map it out a little bit on a diagram here. So we tend to actually prefer using saved searches because most of what we do is based around rules. It's like these are the specific types of people we want to reach out to, and whoever, like if you save them to a static list, they could change their title, change their company, and no longer be relevant. Whereas the rules should be consistent. And so your saved searches should feed in the right people and remove them once they're no longer relevant. So if you look at my sheet here, if you think about all the people on LinkedIn and you think of all companies on LinkedIn, there's like a few different ways you can go about it. So we'll use the same terms that they use it. Linked, leads, and accounts. Now, for the most part, leads is where you want to focus your efforts because you're looking for specific people. Where you really need to use account searches, however, is where the industry category doesn't quite suffice. So let's say you wanted to go after a certain type of business. So let's say it was, for example, we'll talk about a segment within here called, let's say, professional training. If I was to use my filter on LinkedIn and select the industry professional training, it's going to bring up all the people that fit under that industry. And then I can use the filters to determine what types of people I want to find that are working within that industry. Now, where it gets challenging is, let's say you wanted to find a specific subset of this industry, like professional training that work in the construction space. Well, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated because on your leads list, you can't actually specify industry professional training and specify certain keywords within that type of company. And this is probably where it gets the most complicated. It's not particularly hard to get your head around, but if you're not used to it, it can be a little bit tricky. So like I said, if your industries are fairly simple when you're looking for leads, just use the leads, use the industry categories that they have there. However, if you need to go more specific on a particular industry, so we'll use professional training that are specialists in construction, what you would then need to do is actually build an account search. And this is where you would actually write rules to find specific types of companies. So you could set your industry as professional training and then use your keywords to determine what kind, to find the right types of companies within that thing. So as an example, let's do it here as an actual example. So if I go to accounts, let's say I want to look in, where's my industry category here? Professional training and coaching. And let's say I want to focus on any that have the word construction in the title. And then we have 1,000 of these. Now the challenge is, well, I can't reach out to a company. I need to reach out to people that actually work at this company. So this is where you need to use a combination of both static lists and dynamic lists as well. You want to say, how do I find all the people from this specific segment and then get really specific on their types of titles and roles. So the way you have to go about that, and unfortunately there is no particularly fast or simple way to do this, it is a little bit slow and tedious, is that you need to go select the companies that you want here. You can either do it one by one or you can select the whole page. You can't select the entire list at a time, and the list will only go to 1,000. So if you want to go get everyone on this list, you'll need to do one list of, let's say 1 to 10. It'll probably still be over 1,000. You might need to break it up by location so that you have mutually exclusive lists that are all under 1,000 each. But in this example, I'm going to try and keep it a little bit simple. You select the companies you want to find the people at, you save to a list. So I'm going to save it to, I'm going to call it 000 test. And then what you would actually do, let's say you wanted to save all 1,000 people, or 1,500. You'd only get access to the 1,000 because you'd run out of pages. Like I say, you need to split it out if you want to get all of them. You have to go through one page at a time. So 1, 2, select all, save to list, and your list will be there. And you can only save 1,000 to these lists as well. So if you have 10,000, you need to create 10 lists. And this is where those go. Those go to that static list that we were talking about before. So you just have to go through one page at a time and save them to your list. Once you've done that and you've got the exact companies that you want to find the people at, you can go back to your lead search. You can get rid of all this other stuff around the type of company you want to search for. And then this is where the magic happens. You can say, I want to only look at people that were on this static account list that I built called 000. And now I can start to drill down on these specific people within the specific companies that I set. And this is where you can get really quite targeted on your list. Now you still might find people that are irrelevant in here. And this is where you can actually start to tidy up your list one by one, even without having to change your actual search rules. So let me get rid of this thing here because it doesn't matter anymore. What you can actually do is using a static list, you can say, I want to save people. Let's say Edward Walsh wasn't a good example. I could save that person to a list called, I'll call it 000. I'll stick with the theme, exclude. And now what happens is, well, nothing yet. But if I say, I want you to actively exclude anyone from that is saved to the 000 exclude list. See, he's there now, but if I say exclude him, anyone that I save to that list will now be actively removed. So I've got a dynamic list, but I can work through one at a time and remove individual people without having to change rules or write weird rules for these people that are the exceptions. So I could do the same thing here to exclude this person. And you probably find that he actually doesn't move or he just stays where he is. That just means that you need to refresh the page and now he's going to be gone from your list. So then you have your list. Let's say it's a really good tight list. You click save, you give it a good name, and this is really what we're going to be using later on when we start to reach out to people. We'll call it the good list. I like to give it generally, most times I give it a good name that's fairly indicative of what it is. 83 results. Not a very good number. So generally you want, at least a few hundred. You can't access over 2,500, similar to the account list. So what you would want to do is actually break it out into smaller lists that are less than 2,500 results, because after that you just can't see the people you want there. And finally, what I wanted to touch on is some of the most powerful filters of Sales Navigator, and that's by prioritizing people that are most likely to engage. So if I'll bring it back to my little diagram down here. So we've gone through and we've found the specific people that we want to reach out to on LinkedIn. You've got everyone, let's say this is your target market. You've identified them on LinkedIn. Now, on LinkedIn, you have what's called third-degree connections, you've got second-degree connections, and you've got first-degree. So you've got you over here, and you've got your network. Second degree connections are people that are connected to other people in your network. And third degree connections are connected to people once removed from that again. So they're not necessarily directly connected to others in your network. They're another step removed. So once you define your target market, you really need to prioritize who is most likely to engage. Now, if we only look at first, second, and third degree connections, first degree is a good place to start, assuming you've been nurturing your network, because these are people who know you. I mean, if you've done any sort of posting of content, they're already in your network, and it's a really good place to start. The problem is most people don't have a particularly big or decent sized first degree network of relevant audience. And so for the most part, you always want to be growing your network with new people, and second degree is an excellent place to start. I would always, wherever possible, if you have a decent sized audience, be prioritizing connecting with second degree connections over third degree. Only third degree if for any reason you ran out of second degree connections. So this is when you're building your list, if I come back to the screen here, you can say connection second degree. The way you reach out to people will be different from first degree connections. You'd run a different lot of messages to those than you would from second and third degree, because second and third degree people haven't met you, they're not in your network, they don't know who you are, and so you can generally start the conversation the same way. Whereas first degree connections may be existing contacts, there's a whole range of things they could be that you need to take into account. So second and third degree is really where the money lives, and always prioritize second degree over third degree. Now, if you look at my screen here, there's some other really powerful filters. This is my favorite one. It's called posted on LinkedIn. There's some other ones called change jobs or mention in the news, but posted on LinkedIn is my favorite. And the reason this is the case is because it shows us something super valuable that helps us like tremendously when it comes to actually generating leads. And it shows us engagement. And why this matters is there's a huge portion, like if we look at over, well, if you come back to my sheet here, you'll find there's a massive portion of first degree, second degree, and even third degree, like a gigantic chunk of this market just don't use LinkedIn. They may have a profile, but they're not on there very often, which means that there's a much smaller portion of the market that are actually going to see any messages you send on the platform. And this is particularly heartbreaking because I see so many people, they get the targeting right, but they don't reach out to people who are actually going to engage because they reach out to people who most likely don't even use the platform. So if you target people who are actually engaged on the platform, so let's say you have this segment of engaged users here that you've identified by saying, hey, they've posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days, then you almost double your chance that they're actually going to review your message. And it also takes out of the equation any uncertainty around, hey, is this person getting my message? And then you can just say, hey, is this message resonating? So this helps you actually test your messaging so that you know whether or not what you're doing is actually working or not, and you're not sort of wondering whether they're even seeing it. So what this means is if you can focus on second degree and active users using some of these filters that indicate that they're active or using the platform, this is where you would start, this is where you would prioritize, and if you had the choice, you wouldn't do anything else in terms of reaching out and engaging. Now, some people do have limited size networks and they don't necessarily have that option, and we'll get into that a little bit later, how you can use different platforms to reach out to those people as well. But for this, if you have a big market, you're really going to want to prioritize second degree connections, active users. That's where you're going to get, you literally, if you just went out to a list of your target market versus second degree posted on LinkedIn, you should get like double, if not more, the engagement, because you know that these users are actually online, they're actually going to see your messaging. So what that actually looks like, if you come back to my screen in terms of reality, is exactly what you're seeing here. You're selecting second degree connections and posted on LinkedIn. So this is a really crappy example because there's only 8 results, but a lot of the times you're gonna, depending on if you have a fairly wide target market search, it's gonna really, it could be thousands, and that's gonna be excellent. You're gonna get a great result from that. So there's a ton of different other features and stuff that I don't wanna get into here. Like I said, I wanna keep this fairly quick and really focus on the 80-20 rule. So this is like the 20% of all the features that are gonna deliver 80% of the results, and they're going to get you moving on your way. This is pretty much what we focus on with our clients. All of the other stuff is just little, really obscure things, and we don't use that often. What I showed you here today is really the bread and butter for generating high quality campaigns on LinkedIn and finding the right target market. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but this is a great place to get started. Hey, I hope you found that valuable. Yeah, like I said, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is really what makes it the powerhouse platform it is today. It takes a little bit to get your head around it, especially with the static and dynamic searches. But for a lot of people, if you just use the industry category and search titles, look for active users, second degree users, you just pretty much kind of double anything that you've done before if you hadn't used those. Really great, powerful strategies and really simple. If you have more niche or specific audiences, you've got to look for types of companies and then find those companies and look for people at those companies and then do the exact same thing. a little bit to get your head around, but once you get it, it's pretty straightforward and a really powerful strategy. So now that you know how to find your audience and you've built a decent list of exactly who you want to reach out to, you know they're engaged on LinkedIn, you know they're going to see your message, now's the fun part. Well, I think it's the fun part where we're actually going to launch into how to write engaging scripts. So when you reach out to people, they're going to be interested in what you do and actually want to have a chat with you. This is the part I think most people struggle with, not just in terms of actually doing it or knowing what to do. It feels like a mental block for a lot of people. They don't want to do it. They feel salesy. They don't know how to write good, compelling copy that actually gets people engaged and interested and like genuinely want to learn more about what you do. So I'm excited to go over that more in the next video. Can't wait to see you there.
All right, I hope you found that useful. As I mentioned at the start, there's a whole ton of other videos in this series. So if you're interested in checking them out, just click on the playlist that should be up on the screen right here.